Continuing our focus on Workers' Day, as we mark Workers' Day, one black-owned skills development company says the answer to the country's labor problems is for workers to acquire better skills. Afrika Tikkun Services says a skilled labor force will translate into real economic activity. For more on this, I'm joined now by its CEO, Onyi Nwaneri. Onyi, thank you. I've got to thank you for your time and your insights here on eNCA. One of the points you make in the statement that you released ahead of Workers' Day is that South Africa's workforce is highly unskilled, yet is among the most expensive workforces compared to other developing countries. What's your reading of how that feeds into the economic situation that we face and how it can be addressed?
Thank you for having me, and thank you to your listeners. We as Afrika Tikkun Services work with a lot of young people and a lot of people within the economy. One of the things we found is that there is a lot of low-skilled labor within the country. And our big focus this year is to really challenge labor to think about self-empowerment. And the reason why we are particularly saying this is that we are in a context of fourth industrial revolution. Fourth industrial revolution is challenging everyone to think differently about the type of skills they have and how they can engage effectively in the economy.
And this rallying cry and call for people to empower themselves, what direction should it take? What are some of your suggestions around what you have assessed to be a low-skilled workforce? How do they then empower themselves? What are some of the readily available options?
So if you look at how the economy has changed, we've moved from industrial economy, or we went from industrialization to knowledge economy. Now we're in the digital economy. A lot of requirement in terms of skills, especially within the digital economy, is something that we need to be looking at. And so for us, our challenge to workers this Workers' Day is that the workers should start looking at platforms. There's a lot of companies across that is beginning to put out digital platforms. For example, we have a partnership with Microsoft through the Global Skills Initiative, where we continuously provide opportunities for people to gain in-demand skills across tech skills, financial services skills, skills that relate to customer service, etc. So there are lots and lots of platforms that is currently that has been brought out by different companies and different people who are intentional about improving the skill shortage and transferring the current skills competence we have in the country into a skills competence that the companies in the country can use.
Here's where you are likely to run into at least some controversy around labor, the labor component of our society. Onyi, your assessment of the impact of the national minimum wage. You basically argue that the continuing enforcement of the national minimum wage will shrink South Africa's workforce into a smaller, more expensive and underskilled workforce. Well, I say to you that you saw what happened today in the Northwest with the president of the ANC not being able to address workers there. You are treading on, with labor at least, on thin ice.
Well, I don't have a problem with the national minimum wage per se. I understand the reason why we have the national minimum wage, because we're trying to right the wrongs of the past and we're trying to create equality, equity, and justice in our country. Very understandable. However, in a country and a continent where we've seen, particularly in our country, where we've seen a shrinking economy and where we've seen a stronger competition in the world, a lot of our skills are currently currently the jobs that we need in our country are being outsourced to India, to Eastern Europe. And part of what we do as Afrika Tikkun Services is to lobby to try and bring those jobs that are being outsourced to India and Eastern Europe back into the country. The only way we can do that is if we can compete. For us to compete, then we need to be able to provide better better skilled and competent labor force that can compete with India and China. But at the same time, we need to be able to compete on price in an equitable and equality-based way at the same time. So we have to compete to prevent the jobs from continuing to shrink, to go to Eastern Europe and India and similar countries where they are able to compete. And I think as long as we as South Africans do not see ourselves as a country in isolation, but a country that is within a larger group of countries that are competing to grow the economy, competing to fight the challenge of unemployment, then we look at things in isolation and we're not looking at things holistically. And I think that's the point. The point is, how do we get labor to step up to the plate and fight for self-empowerment in order to compete?
All right, fantastic. Interesting insights on this Workers' Day. That's Onyi Nwaneri, who is CEO of Afrika Tikkun Services, weighing in there on some of the factors that she believes are at play in as far as the economy and productivity and competitiveness is concerned.